Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Surabhi Pokharna. I'll be talking about applying a security mindset to lock down your Azure SQL cloud database. Quick intro about me. I'm a database professional with 20 plus years of experience. Currently, I'm involved with cloud data migrations and leading a global data platform services team. Here is my contact information. If you have any question after this session, then please feel free to shoot me an email or message on Twitter. So today we are here to talk about Azure SQL data security mindset. And end goal of this session is not only to give you a glimpse of what, how, and why is of Azure SQL data security, but also I want you to walk out with a data security mindset to do the right things, right configuration in your environment. Before we get going, here is the feedback link. Your feedback is extremely important for us. So please do it once the session is done. Fill this feedback form. Here is the link. Thank you so much. So let's use an analogy of car safety. Do you know that cars are designed to fail? Nobody can claim that a car would never have an accident. Let's stop driving then. No, we don't stop driving, but we plan for the failure. We create multiple layers of defense mechanism from crumple zone to seat belts to airbags, and with the latest technology, car safety has taken like new highs with the high-tech safety features, cameras, 360-degree cameras, sensors, blind spot detection, and whatnot. We see an ever-evolving multi-layer defense system to minimize the impact, right? Exactly same story goes with the data security. And there is nothing unique about the databases. With anything in security, we always think in layers. One layer failed, then still you are not left unprotected. The next layer would save you. So the defense in depth is the key for every aspect of security, including Azure SQL security. As you see in this picture, network is our security perimeter. We have this stuff inside a great big firewall and we are confident, hey, we are going to protect, that's going to protect it. Now that's really not true. In the cloud, well, that service is not sitting on my own network for most of the instances. And there are types of services that are dedicated that can sit in my own virtual network, but is still in the cloud. And so we have to think more than just the network. We have to think about other layers, and each layer contains multiple sublayers. So let's imagine a life of data in Azure SQL from the security lenses. What are those layers? Each layer of defense contains multiple sublayers and options. So here is the comprehensive and innovative security portfolio Azure SQL has to offer to secure your application workload. Isn't it looking super simple? And yeah, piece of cake. Let's go ahead and just deploy everything. Don't worry. I know it's looking a bit heavy, but it's not that complicated. So now we have to build our successful security story using these defense in depth layers. And not only we need to understand all these options from the cloud side, but also we need to have mastery on our own production workload, our situations, our scenarios, which is applicable on our data environment. And there are a few more security considerations than just the official security portfolio offering. Uh, these building blocks: backup, restore, replication, and monitoring. So the thumb rule is you are as good as how you monitor. And when you have a solid backup, high availability replication solution implemented, then which you keep testing periodically, okay, underscore bold, keep testing periodically. That is equally important when you are building your security picture. So in today's session, we'll stick with these our small comprehensive security portfolio and go in detail one layer at a time. Let's begin with the network. So in network security, there are two aspects which are important: firewall rules and NSGs or network security groups, and private link for Azure SQL database. So let's dive into our demo environment, get familiar with the environment, and we will get going with our this firewall and other settings. So let me switch to my lab. Come on, there you go. Okay, so let's meet the environment. This is my resource group, Surbi. And in my resource group, if I just maximize this, here in the virtual, I have a virtual machine, SQL VM sec mindset. We'll be using this virtual machine as our jump host. Other than that, we have two more Azure SQL instances. One is AZ SQL sec mindset. This is like we'll pretend or we'll configure this guy as like a good guy, and all the configuration security layers deployed. And then we have another SQL Azure SQL instance, AZ SQL no sec mindset. And in this particular Azure SQL instance, we will be configuring couple of layers as we go during the demos, and also we will understand the difference between the security mindset and the no sec mindset. So now if I go further down in that sec mindset, what do we have here? So first of all, I really like, this like how that all the security features belong to this one Azure SQL. They're right here, one-stop shop kind of view. So we can really understand in that layered approach, right? Which is like sort of getting clear when you see from the SQL Server, or SQL Server we know, right? In Azure SQL, it's like sort of a wrapper, a logical container. But it's still from the network perspective and the security perspective, this logical container is extremely important. And then we'll go inside our each database. So here, this kind of view is it's very helpful just to understand. So I really like that, just sharing that aspect. Now, moving along, we are about to start with firewall and virtual network. So this one is AZ sec mindset. And let's go to the other one, that AZ no sec mindset, because for this particular firewall and virtual network, we are going to pick AZ SQL no sec mindset. Okay, so here it is. So before we go and understand what is there in the firewall and all, there is one important configuration setting which is important to understand and configure it correctly. So as you see here, allow Azure services and resources to access this server. And by default, this one is set to no. So this option, if we set this to yes, this option would allow any Azure resources, VM, application, Cloud Shell to access the public endpoint for the database deployment. So I would prefer not to select allow access option to yes, because who knows what type of bad actors have created resources in Azure and would try to access our database, right? So this is the one setting that we have set that as no. Now the firewall rule. So let's pick one simple scenario. I showed you my jump host. Now from my jump host, I want to connect to AZ SQL no sec mindset, right? Very simple thing. So unless I whitelist my jump host IP address here, and that is sort of opening the firewall rule, I cannot connect from my jump host this AZ SQL no sec mindset. Okay, so now you have a jump host from where you want to connect. So the one thing which already you know your machine, you know your host from where you want to connect. All you need is just open the port, because already that is the requirement. You just have to whitelist the IP address. So let's go and see how to do that. This is my no sec mindset. I'm going to connect database engine. This one I'm going to pick my no sec mindset instance, and when I'm trying to connect, what does it say? It says your cloud IP address does not have access to the server. Sign in sign in with an Azure account and create a new firewall rule to enable access. So I'm trying to sign in, and it would go to my account, and let me type my password. Okay, so now it is saying here is my IP address of my jump host, and this one is going to create one firewall rule. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And here I'm able to connect to my no-sec mindset database. So now if we go back to our this configuration setting, and if I just go back to my, yeah. So here, what do we see? There is one firewall rule with this my existing jump host IP address, it got created. So that is how whenever we have to create one whitelist an IP address, we can do that. Now, what if we have a range of IP addresses, right? So for that range of IP addresses, you can create have that, you can create one VNet rule. And then in that, you can identify your virtual network. And from there, you can give a range of IP addresses. So this range of IP addresses, now here basically we are creating our own picture, right? And in that picture, so let's go back. Yeah, so in that picture, we know that hey, I'm just want to connect from a jump host, or I have a range of IP addresses. How would I do that? So these are the options. Now here you see this another setting: deny public network access. Okay, I have not checked that yes, because these are public network access. Because what if my jump host would be somewhere out of my Azure, or somewhere on my on-prem data center, or I have a range of IP addresses, which is so application hosts are here in on-prem or hosted environment, and I want to connect. So that is why we have not checked this thing here, deny public network access. But now we have a different scenario where we want to deny all public network access, and then from there we are trying to build our different level of application and services. That other option is private endpoint connection. So let's go to sec mindset and then take a look at this configuration. In sec mindset, as you can see, we have created private endpoint. So basically, in private endpoint, when we don't want to allow any public endpoint access to our Azure SQL database, regardless of whether connection came from in or outside of Azure, then our option is private endpoint, and we have already created that. So in this case, as you can see, this configuration in firewall, deny public network access for my sec mindset. And there is no firewall, there is no virtual network, but this one is denying public access. So now if I go back to my presentation slide and then pick a couple of other private endpoint scenarios, just to bring like a little bit more clarity. So creating a private, here what do we have? Oh, hold on, let me go to a little bit hover my mouse here, and yeah. So creating a private endpoint inside this particular VNet in Azure, that Azure SQL database will be assigned an address from this particular VNet address space. And here we have our private endpoint created. So in this case, a couple of scenarios, right? That Azure private endpoint, here, one second, let me go back to yeah. So now in this case, we are picking three scenarios. Scenario one, where you are connecting from your on-prem, and then any connectivity, you have application, all applications are in on-prem, and here you have your private endpoint IP address given. So in that case, you would be connecting to this private endpoint certain IP address which is there, and you via VPN gateway, express route, whatever is the requirement. Now, another thing requirement where private endpoint can fulfill, you have a jump host, which is like my case, right? That I have a jump host inside the same VNet and I'm trying to connect to this IP address. Or we can have various application like hub and spoke kind of model, and we can have various application, and this particular jump private endpoint or the application is running in one VNet, but I want to open connectivity from various VNet. So this one is like you are basically end of day from the conclusive statement, Azure private endpoint. This is helping us in securing the connection coming to you from our Azure SQL database. We can deny public network access for the Azure SQL server and just make it available from a specific VNet using DNS or the private IP. Now, moving along. Next layer, access and authentication. In access and authentication, right? So far we are connected using a secure network architecture, and in access and authentication, number one question is who you are, authentication. And the second question is authorization. If we know you are a legitimate entity who can be who can access database, then what can you do? Authorization, can you just read? Oh, you can write also, that kind of thing. But the fundamental rule is the key security principle, least privileges, separation of duties, build your own access matrix, identify all the requirements from various groups. That's our big homework, and we must do it correctly with your SecOps team, your database team, your application team, and your business requirement. Put everything together and build your access matrix. So these are various flavors, as you can see, right? In access and authentication, Active Directory authentication, role-based access control, SQL roles and permission. So in, because this itself is a vast topic, and I have to pick many other layers. So in general, we'll pick like few things which are different in Azure SQL, because in general, right, roles and permissions and all the fundamental rules are same. So we'll go a little bit in more detail, and then we'll move to the next layer. So now so a couple of quick things here from the which are a bit different, and we have to understand from Azure SQL side. This When you deploy your Azure SQL instance, you get one sec mindset user created, or one user option which you can give any name which you want to pick. And this one is like sort of similar to our SA account. As the name suggests, it is admin account which can do anything on the server. And if we we can use Active Directory authentication also. And when we go back to demo machine environment, we'll see these couple of ways how we are connecting. Now, during deployment, once you pick your SA account or server admin account, you have only option in future where you can reset your password, but you cannot do anything else. Once it is there, it is there. You cannot change the name. And there is nothing like, we know, right? There's nothing like sysadmin account in Azure SQL database, but these two accounts, server admin and Active Directory admin, these are the ones that have like sort of similar access. And this account is already configured when it was created during the creation of SQL Server, and name of the server admin, once it is created, cannot be changed. Now, Active Directory I think recent change, yeah. So another aspect is that during Active Directory, we can pick your option. You remember that mixed mode authentication and only your Windows authentication. So that option is available. If my application and any of my requirement really does not require me to create SQL user, then we'll just stick with Active Directory authentication, that or Windows authentication single mode. That option is there. Now, coming back to this inheritance structure, when we talk about when you have to put all your authorization matrix. So this is the high level thing, and John Sowell's Azure Access Matrix, one of the Pluralsight video, he has done really great job, and this one idea of this inheritance structure is there from there, and towards the end all the credits are there. So first layer we interact here is SQL Server. For non-managed instance, right, we know there is not much to do here with the SQL Server layer, but still this is the first layer. The next layer is database. And this is the layer where things like really start getting involved. And then we have set of database roles within this, and then we have schemas. Schemas are like, different folders or containers. And these databases, we can have multiple databases. Inside each databases, we can have multiple schemas. So how the permissions would be inherited from the one layer to the next layer. And now these databases can be a single database with a certain sort of resources. So we can have these schemas, they act like folders. And then we have actual resource containers. In schema container, we have actual resources. These two roles in master database, which are a bit different than all other SQL roles which we are carrying over from SQL Server to Azure SQL, and the similar kind of understanding. DBA manager, login manager, and login manager. DBA manager role provides the authority to create and delete databases, and and login manager, they can create and delete logins. There's a little more on DBA manager, but currently like this is something more from the understanding perspective, and rest all the database role exists for each database and this is something in the master database. Moving along, next layer, data protection. Ensuring we have proper authorization to connect and access the database is just the first step. Then after that, we have next layer, right? The various types of data protection layers. So the first one, data in transit. In data in transit, encrypt the data that is flowing over the wire between client and the database. So remember you saw that our by default that TLS version was 1.2, and Azure SQL, it enforces encrypted connection whether the client or application layer it is enabled or not. Then the second one is transparent data, TDE, or transparent data encryption. We have a couple of demos here. So just let me explain a little bit and we dive into the demo for TDE. TDE is concept we know, right? That SQL Server engine will encrypt and decrypt data to the file as the data is written and read from the disk. So you must be thinking that, we do not have those disks even exposed to us, right? It is underneath. It is a pass service. Why are we like talking about data at rest encryption kind of thing? In a way, this is like a great thing. And in fact, it is not only data at rest encryption from the database layer, at the data at rest layer, it's double encryption. Those storage disks are also encrypted. This actually shows the Microsoft commitment, right? That we have this layer, also these all offerings by default TD is enabled. So you don't have to worry about that. Still, there are another option, BYOK, and we'll go through that in demo. So when we wonder why do we need file level encryption, but this something shows Microsoft commitment. And in this case, data at rest encryption, it can be attacked, like malicious users are able to access the database files at the data center, or like those kind of extreme scenarios. So that is the reason these double encryption, storage layer and the data at rest is there. In one another scenario, BYOK, before we go into in TDE, you have by default encryption enabled, and okay, great. But at the same time, user or the client requirement is that we want to make sure that you are enabling it using some as key providers, or that entire particular terminology. Let's use it, EKM, extensible key management. So in this case, SQL Server provides a method to use an EKM provider to protect the database encryption key to encrypt the data with TDE. So how the database looks when it is encrypted with the traditional by default TDE, and how we can use it for BYOK scenario. So in this case, when I go to my sec mindset database and I go and see TDE, what we have done here, this one is BYOK, customer managed. And if we just quickly jump and go and see our no sec mindset, and where it is, this one is server managed key. So the step one, when you are thinking about like what is difference, am I like less secured when my TD is by default TD and BYOK is a better option? No. uh, but many organizations, especially like big financial organization or any other, they might have like, hey, we have a FIPS level 2 security policy as per our agreement with the clients, and we want to make sure you are not using that only the database engine layer, but you are using configuring your data at rest encryption using that external or key provider. In this case, we are using Azure Key Vault as key provider, and that is extensible key management. So those are the requirements that also drives, but in general it is not this is more secure or this is less. Definitely there are differences, and there is like a different level of security understanding. It is elevated when it is customer like not the by default TD. Okay, if we are talking about BYOK, just understand one thing first, right, before we jump on that actual doing it. So that understanding is now in order to move to EKM solution, we need to have a key vault. Okay, then when you have to key vault and you are generating your own key, then you will have expiration date. So let's just see how the key vault looks and how we have configured for EKM. This is my key vault, and in my key vault, once you build the key vault, so obviously there are higher level of cost, right, because you are now using Azure services, so cost is involved. So one has to understand their scenarios, and when you create your key vault, Then you have to make sure that you are assigning certain access policies. And inside the key vault, then you have to create your keys. So here there is lot more science when if you have to deploy BYOK model to your like an enterprise scale clients, where you have like at least 100, 200, 500 clients, then you'll have you cannot create one key vault and put everybody's key right there. You have to understand that key vault naming convention terminology. Every key vault would have its own keys, and then their key expiration. So things are involved here. And in that case, like here, I have a key sec mindset. And this one I'm creating BYOK AZ SQL no sec mindset. And this is the key which I'm going to use for my BYOK scenario. So these keys they come with their key type, key size, and then internally some key expiration. And that is where another I'm not saying operational overhead, but you have to understand your keys would expire in 1.5 years, so you'll have to make sure that the next key version is generated, and they come with you have to configure that, create your key and provide it certain kind type of permitted operation. So now we go back, and now how does it look, a BYOK or a key when it is BYOK configured, and a key which is traditional key Azure key vault configured. So in this one, this is my other configuration, right? Sec mindset, where I'm already connected. And when I run this query in sec mindset, as you can see, this is what it is giving me, that how your keys are configured and what is the database encryption type for AZ SQL sec mindset. This one is the one which is already BYOK deployed, and this one encryption type is asymmetric. Now if I run the same query in my AZSec no sec mindset, which is the traditional TDE, I should be in the scope of my database. Yeah, what do you see here? Certificate. This is the by default TDE certificate security deployed. So in this case, we have to this is the one which we are going to deploy it from BYOK. So typically when you run on your all enterprise databases, when you run these queries and you see that okay, my client is looking for us to move to BYOK, but maybe 5 clients, they are okay, that they have no next level of FIPS level 2 security requirement, and they're okay as long as you have TDE. Then you don't have to jump on changing that. You're secured and safe here with this by default encryption too. So now we go back, and so we saw we have a key vault, and within the key vault we have created one key. So where is sec no sec mindset? This one is the no sec mindset, and TDE. Okay, so let's go to the customer managed key. It says, okay, go ahead and select a key. So I'm going to my subscription. My key store type is key vault, and we already saw my key vault. And where is my key vault? AKV BYOK sec mindset, and which is my BYOK. And here is my key version. Every key version based on my expiration I get. Now after 1.5 years, when this key would expire, I'll create a new key version, and that would be the one. So I'm going to select this thing, and I'm going to save this. So what we accomplished here, that we had a by default TD configured, but we moved to with our own BYOK key. And now in this case, you understand there is cost and some operational overhead involved, which we went through. We created a key vault and created a key and configured that. So now when I go back and run the same query again, what do you see in this database? AZSec no mindset. Now the encryption type is asymmetric key, use and key vault and Azure key vault as cryptographic encryption provider. So this is the case which we configured BYOK. So the BYOK concept, it says something like, as we said, let's go back to the demo. Now, another very important concept is always encrypted. And before we go to always encrypted, sorry, let me not jump onto that. One another thing which is within, let's just take it within our data at rest security. You would be thinking, okay, you have BYOK, you have traditional TDE. One of the reason or understanding, right, when you have BYOK or you have basically your own using Azure Key Vault, you have your own customer managed keys. So now here we are introducing one concept which you have to bring into life, or you have to make it effective: separation of duties. Now, not everything is within the DBA container and the database container. You have Azure Key Vault. So DBAs are not going to manage the key when it is expiring after 1.5 years and all that. And in those Azure Key Vault, we are using for our, like from the database perspective, this one is that, we are using for that, for our data protection at data at rest layer. But you can use the Azure Key Vault to store your password for any other, like it's a key vault, right? It's a vault. So now within for TDE, when you are using this particular Azure Key Vault, you have to make sure we are doing the separation of duties, separation of permissions. DBA should not have permission on Key Vault layer, and DBAs would be managing within the database. So as long as instance level, all the keys and everything is created, DBAs are there for making sure that, okay, my asymmetric keys and are there and not traditional TD. But this concept is very important, and you need to have, like, Key Vault administrator or your somebody from your security team. Okay, so moving along, always encrypted. This one is, as earlier we said, right, at the data at rest level, we have 4 stages: data in transit, data at rest, and then data in use. So the always encrypted, this one is the next layer, which is data in reuse for query processing. And consider like this type of attack when, let's say, a rogue malicious administrator or a database administrator arbitrarily running a query against any table and extract confidential information. So we need to encrypt this data in use state. But you can see that you have now 2 conflicting goals here, right? You want to encrypt your database, but you want database system to like process queries, return result, and user should be able to see data. And here the DBAs with elevated privileges, but they should not be able to see data, right? So this paradigm is called confidential computing, confidential computing, query processing without exposing sensitive data to admin or hackers or malware. So Azure SQL provides this unique security feature called always encrypted to achieve confidential computing state. Always encrypted makes encryption transparent to application, as always encrypted enables driver installed on client computer machine, and it achieves this by automatically encrypting and decrypting sensitive data in the client application. And this driver, it would encrypt the data, and end of day, like DBAs, when they are running the queries, they won't be able to see the data. This one, if you are moving into always encrypted direction, you have to make sure first you have like discussion with your application developers and your engineering teams and your application layer, end-to-end layer. We have not only like installing a driver or having the driver somewhere, you have to make sure that end-to-end your application is working. So this one is not like, it is more involved when you are deploying the always encrypted layer. Moving along, I'm not picking in detail dynamic data masking. It can be a contradiction. Sometimes people say, hey, I know my trick, when even the data is masked, I can still see that and all that. But it's still, when you are restoring a typical scenario, prod to test restore. And production, you have already masked your data, which after restoring on development environment, somewhere you are involved, you're this with the data masking, you are hiding the data which is not supposed to be exposed. Best thing is to scrub the data, but still this is one of the option. And first of all, it is even more easy. It's very easy to use feature in Azure SQL. It was easy in SQL Server, but even it is better in Azure SQL. So this is something like I like to use actually. Okay, moving along, my favorite layer, the favorite one: threat protection and detection, SQL auditing, and multiple targets. Okay, so in this layer, we'll not go like in a very sequential manner. We'll go like randomly haphazard, but then we'll just come back and we'll summarize so that all these things would get clarified completely. So as you see in this one, SQL Defender for SQL vulnerability assessment. It's like our resident in-house security expert. And the other one, SQL Defender for SQL threat protection. That is like 24/7 watchdog, monitors traffic coming in and out of the database and alert on any suspicious activity. And this whole thing is integrated with Azure Security Center. So one-stop dashboard for all your security posture. SQL auditing, let's go back to our demo. And we go and we pick sec mindset for this one, because the no sec mindset, there is no even auditing configured. So in sec mindset, currently I'm here at the SQL Server or logical container layer. And when you go to your security feature one-stop shop and you select your auditing, here what we have done, we have enabled SQL Server auditing. So when you enable at the server layer, then automatically the next layer, your SQL database layer, your instances, they would be by default, whatever you have enabled from the server layer, by default it would inherit, and database layer also it would get inherited. Now, this is for these, when you enable it, three events, auditing events, by batch completed group, successful database authentication, failed database authentication. They would be getting logged, activities related to these events. And if you want to add more, definitely you can do that. We need to have a place where we are going to log this, all the auditing activities. And this whole thing has, like, we are just literally going to reap so much benefit when, because people look here these things and they look at the cost. Oh, now one more thing, we add another layer, we are going to log this in somewhere, we have multiple options, storage like log analytics workspace, event hub and all. Without going in more detail, bottom line is auditing should be enabled. No more question, no more discussion, period. That's it. Okay. Now, one more very cool option is here. Okay, we have enabled auditing. We are like, same security mindset, right? So, and we pick log analytics workspace for that. There is one more option, super. Auditing for Microsoft support operation. Now, when you are here, like, we have, for example, like I live in a world, we have on-prem, we have hosted, we have Azure. So it's very important that from our vendor side, if anybody is accessing the database. So here is the option, because otherwise in your old days, right, in your hosted environment, we wrote all our own code to make sure that any, your provider, hosted provider is logging into your database, then it will get alerted. We have all the logs in, there, and we are making sure we have everything enabled. But here it is all that you have to do is enable auditing for Microsoft support operation. And it is not only important that if you have that kind of compliance or not, even if you do not have, from the trend analysis towards the end of the year, you see, oh, how many times we created ticket for Microsoft and they had to actually work on our database. So there are like various things which will help you with this data. So, but this one is like using the different audit log option, right? So I want to have a separate log analytics workspace for my vendor, I can do that. I want to have the same one, use the same, just enable this, we can do that. So this is the auditing thing. Now let's move inside our database layer. In the database sec mindset, what we have within that auditing layer, right? As I said, right, it is server level enabled. It automatically, it would inherit those events, and then we have enabled that server data individual database level layer and using the same log analytics workspace. Okay. Now these three events, right? Now if I want to go back, we have, yeah. Now I want to see now, this is Microsoft Defender for Cloud, which I'm like now introducing that. So we know, okay, auditing is enabled, right? Now we have, we already saw in our previous, we have, I'm just going back to my screen here. So yeah, and here. So Microsoft Defender for Cloud, that's the another layer where we have those two cool options. One is your vulnerability assessment, and other one is your security incidents alerts. And Microsoft Defender, for SQL. So this one is another feature, one of the like really the coolest thing, and we must have this thing enabled. So this Microsoft Defender for SQL, before that there is Microsoft Defender which is enabled at the subscription level. And once it is enabled at the subscription level, we have the option when you configure your deployers Azure SQL, you can now enable this for the Azure SQL. And then it will be doing that my assessment for vulnerability assessment in-house security resident expert, which is already picking all the like CIS benchmark. Those are known vulnerability across the industry, and vulnerability assessment is the one which is already reviewing and making sure that you do not have any vulnerability, and we'll go and check in more detail. So periodic recurring scans, and then we have advanced threat protection. So various scenarios, SQL injection, brute force attack, like you name the thing, right? This is something, all those scenarios, they are covered under advanced threat protection. But here I want to get notification if like there is a SQL injection attack, and then I want to get that email. So you can configure those emails too. So here we are moving from this Azure Defender. Once you configure at the subscription level, you have this option where you can configure this thing. Just enable this, basically not configure, enable this at the SQL server, Azure SQL layer. And vulnerability assessment and advanced threat protection. These are the two options. Okay, so now we go back and we have this enabled, right? That's great. Now I want to see what's going on with my vulnerability assessment here. Go in a little bit in more detail in vulnerability assessment. As I said, that this one is all existing known vulnerabilities, CIS benchmark typically, they have their own IDs assigned, and now your database is going to be scanned against those particular vulnerabilities, and you can do on-demand scan too. And it is not, trust me, it is not like an overhead to your system. You can hit that any point in time. And once you do your vulnerability scan, now here I want to see, oh, what is this thing? Maybe uh, this particular status of vulnerability is like an approved baseline for my environment. It happens, right? In your something is, it's okay to be enabled, then you can pick that approved baseline. And if you want to clear the baseline and start all over like as a fresh review on this set, then you can do that. So this one is super cool. You can run on demand, you can schedule this, and also this is giving you all the setting configuration suggestion which needs to be changed just to meet staying within your security posture. Now moving to the next option, which is something, so why don't we go and see how does it look from your auditing perspective. And when I go and I view my audit log and I view my dashboard, and in my dashboard, this one, because we enabled auditing, right? So all our events, okay, let me pick last 30 minutes. So we had couple of auditing events enabled, right? So if you want to like AZ sec mindset, what was going on? So this is distribution. This is like a really, once you can drill down to further levels and have your own custo queries and provide that report and in detail. And here, like what kind of activities were going on, right? All the audit log activities where I was running this encryption query, and it is giving me statement also, and then what kind of execution went on during that point in time. So now when I come back, me go and quickly jump on showing. View all recommendation in Defender for cloud. So I don't want to view all the but I just want to generate one, SQL injection attack. So let's go to my other, this one, And this is a query, and see, similar kind of queries are there. Like if you see that Bob Ward's my favorite book actually, Azure SQL Revealed, and these scenarios and queries and lot of information is there. So I've not done a lot of rocket science here, to be honest, but definitely really good folks have done great work. So this is something I'm generating, some scenario which is generating the SQL injection attack. Okay, now
5 minutes
it will take
remaining.
5 minutes reminder. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. I do a refresh here. My this latest attack, it's gonna take couple of minutes to appear here in my security alerts. But today morning I already did before this session. So this is times are in Eastern time zone. Let me so whichever time zone you want to see that. And now here it is your Azure Defender is generating these alerts, and you know that you have some, you need to go back and see information what's going on here. Now, all the way from the topmost level, right? If we go all the way up at the subscription level, and in that subscription level, if I go and see my security, and in my security center, if I go to those alerts, when you get a bit conscious, where did that go? Okay, there you go. Yeah. Hmm. So this one is the top view, because now at the from the subscription level, if you have, let's say you have hundreds of subscription, and now out of hundreds of subscription, you have a SQL Microsoft Defender enabled from the subscription level, from the individual database level, and now this is giving you your security posture, or your security, not posture, but the security alert report, which is giving you from the subscription level that, oh, you have, in your subscription, you have some high level issues going on from security side, and here's the potential SQL injection attack going on. So that is how that you are, you can log this information. It's already there in audit log, and then next level security teams would be running around and then make sure that they find you, and then you'll be doing the next level of action. So this was so what we did, a quick recap: we enabled SQL auditing, we did the vulnerability assessment, we had the Microsoft Defender, and then we created a SQL injection attack, and we understood those scenarios and how we can view that. Now, the last thing is data governance. And data governance is nothing but, like, I'm just going to use the screen snapshot here. You can basically, from the classification, right? Some of the information is like it's a classified information. I don't want everybody to query, a DBA to query, select salary from employee, right? So now here I am DBA, and actually I'm doing that. Select salary from employee, and I don't want my my DBA to query zip code, select zip code from customer. Why on earth the DBA would need to query these kind of things? So what we do, we hide that. We want to, we are not hiding, but we are basically classifying, because it's not only DBA, anybody, right, who has the read permission. But I want to know if anybody queries this particular column. So in that case, what we can do, we can add this classification. We can identify and provide the sensitivity level to this information as well. And when you do that, and then here we do that, somebody is querying. So how that, once you have classified the information, in that case, and anybody is querying that particular classified information, then how the view would be from your auditing log. Let's go and see. So I just go back to my sec mindset database, and I'm going to view my audit logs, because I was querying that, right? So let's go and see your audit log. And yes, so this one is the highly confidential GDPR, access to sensitive data. This is the one it is logging, and it is giving me like complete information. last 4 hours so that today actually I was so miser, I reduced my DTUs, so it's running a bit slow, but it would appear in with more drill down view. So if we do a quick recap, mm, one second. Anyways, we saw already, right? Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, this is the one which is like, your enterprise view of your security, your performance, everything, but we are sticking with the security. I'll come back to that later on. But here I got this particular GDPR and sensitive information. Once you drill down, you get the next level information, how this particular information, and it is telling me this my contact information, Surbi resource group, and who did what, and somebody like, oh, she was doing the select zip code from customer. So all the information is right here because we classified that information as confidential. And moving along, the last slide, there you go. Bring back everything. We touched every layer in our defense system, secured it, and we cannot say still the journey ended. The journey continues. And with that, please make sure that you fill this feedback form. Link is right here. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Are there questions?
There's none online. Any questions here? No,
Oh.
no questions.
Okay,
So.
problem. So if still after this session, if anybody has any question, here's my contact information. Please feel free to contact me and send me an email via Gmail or like a message on Twitter. Thank you so much for your time. Bye-bye.